Welcome to the AAA-ICDR Foundation podcast. I'm your host, Tracey Frisch, Executive Director of the Foundation and Division Vice President of the AAA-ICDR. It's great to be here with you today. Our mission is to support the prevention and resolution of conflicts by expanding access to alternative dispute resolution. Join us as we share some of what we do and connect with thought leaders, change makers, grantees, and experts pioneering these efforts. Together, we'll explore how the AAA-ICDR Foundation is not just resolving individual conflicts, but also shaping a more peaceful world. Joining me today is Molly Baldwin, founder and Chief Executive Officer of Roca, a distinguished grantee of our foundation. Roca's mission is to relentlessly disrupt violence by engaging young people, police, and systems to heal trauma, find hope, and drive change. I'm also honored to welcome Lloyd Wells, retired major of the Baltimore Police Department and one of Roca's lead facilitators for the Rewire 4 training program. Rewire 4 training introduces law enforcement to the basics of brain science, the impact of trauma on the brain, and how it affects behavior, conflict, and lifelong patterns. Welcome. Molly, I'll start with you. Could you tell us about the inspiration for the creation of Roca and Rewire 4?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your support and for having us here today. And I promise you, Lloyd's going to be more interesting than me very quickly. Roca just turned 37 years old. We started in Chelsea, Massachusetts, really working with young people that were totally disengaged, getting in trouble with the law, not getting the supports they need, and began working with young people really through outreach and going to find them because we weren't really set up for people to show up. And over the years, we've done a lot of things. I hope we've done more good than bad, but at this point, we're sort of hyper-focused on young people at the center of urban violence. We work with about 2,000 young people across Massachusetts, in Baltimore City and in the county, and then also in Hartford, Connecticut. What we've done is create sort of a long-term intervention for young people with, very serious records, really not ready to engage, high trauma, high engagement in violence. And what we do is we go find them, we hold on to them, whether they want anything to do with us or not. And then we've adapted cognitive behavior therapy to a sort of a theoretical sort of emotional regulation model with, if you will, and we teach people on the street. And what we've learned is that the brain science tells us we can change our brain, but it takes 2 years to see any change at that age of 16 to 24. And we engage with young people, we get them to do things, we work on the court stuff, we try to get them to do education, we run work crews, we do parenting, we resolve issues. But most of what we're doing is finding them, holding on to them, and teaching them this cognitive behavior theory we call Rewire CBT. And we're seeing big changes over time. In 3 years in Massachusetts, we show year over year a 30% plus reduction in recidivism of the highest risk young men. We're also beginning to see great changes among young women and young mothers around reduction in criminal behavior, engagement in education and employment, and also being able to help them really be the parents they hope to be. A few years ago, right before the pandemic, we were thinking about, and we thought, well, we have a couple of things that are really good that we should be able to share and learn how to share. And as you know, it's a very different process than what you do yourself. So we ended up sharing kind of a couple of things. One is this Rewire CBT. We coach other youth organizations across the country working with similar young people, how to learn it and how to give those skills to young people so they can make the changes they want to. Work with juvenile justice systems and train some of them and their staff and supervisors how to do it and help them really think about if you're working with young people who are really engaged in violence and highly disengaged from other things, what does that take? And then the third thing, we sort of tripped into it by mistake, but got caught up with it quickly, was, we should adjust this for our friends who are police. And so early on with our director of Rewire 4, Dave Batchelor, and Lloyd from the beginning, I'm like, hey, we got this idea that we do with kids. We want to do it with cops. And they were like, okay, now what do you want us to do? And pretty quickly, they figured it out. And so that's how we got to Rewire 4. It's a shorter training and it's based on 4 skills. And it is our enormous privilege to work with both young people and system partners and police, particularly in this day and age.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Lloyd, I'm going to turn to you now and ask you a little bit more about the Rewire 4 training and how you see this training making a difference for police officers and communities.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having me. Um, I must say, as I am one to, we'll talk about transparency. I must say, in the beginning, when it was time to deal with Roca, I was skeptical, because I had dealt with other programs. I was quite not sure was really in it for the right thing. But to my surprise, the organization really did the job that they were supposed to do. They really wanted to help the people in my community, to help it become a better community, wanted to help the young men and women. Unlike others, they really did believe in staying in touch with the people they were working with them over and over again to make sure that they can make it better for them, with also holding them accountable for their actions, which made a significant difference in watching them grow. They hold them for their accountability and hold them accountable, but then would still engage them to let them know we're not going anywhere, but there's consequences to your actions and you must step up to the plate to do what you have to do. So I have to say that now I can talk about the other thing. I had to get that out there. So where it makes a difference for police officers, as we were doing it with Molly and we were watching the young people, and they were talking about the cognitive behavioral theory and talking about the way your thinking, your feelings control your actions and how trauma impacts you. We looked at it like, it's the same for us as police officers, that the things that we've seen, the things that we've gone through have impacted us at work and at home. So with that being said, we looked at how can it help us personally and professionally, which is something that was never given to us before, because we're told to de-escalate situations, but no one ever taught us how to de-escalate or have control of ourselves. And it's not like we were doing it on purpose. We just wasn't aware of what was happening. So with this training, what it allowed us to do is to slow things down. When safe, to slow it down, to think it through, to think about what your body is telling you, what you're feeling, slow it down, deal with the situation, and not take things personally. And if you can have emotional regulation and learn not to take things personally, it's better safety for you and everybody else involved.
Great, thank you. And how did you really get the buy-in? I know you said, at the beginning you were skeptical yourself. So, I'm wondering how is Roca able to, because I know you work with whole police departments. How are you able to get the buy-in of the police department to say that this is, a good option, that this training actually works and is worthwhile? Because obviously it takes time, which is a hot commodity.
So believe it or not, again, not sure if we were going to get buy-in. We believed in it. We understood it. We knew what it was. But again, there's two things police officers don't like: things to stay the same and for things to change.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it was a process. But after we started teaching, we realized once we got them in the room and had them for about 30 minutes, they could understand that we really were in there training them to say, you didn't do anything wrong. We're just trying to help you to become better for yourself. And after a while, explaining some of the things, talking about some of the theories and the skills that they're talking about, it's kind of buys itself in because people will understand and say, hey, that is me. Yeah, that did happen to me. And we're not doing a blame game. We're doing it's understandable. We understand because we may have gone through it. Here's how you can change that. And for me to get the buy-in, I explain it that I use it at home. I use it at home more than I did at work because, and we all know that philosophy. If my home life is good, everything else just seems to follow suit. And that's really kind of how we've gotten the buy-in, is because it's no secret. We're not hiding. It's no tricks. It's all straightforward. It's honest, and they can understand because they have gone through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think a couple of things, Tracey, if it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
One is, as Lloyd and Dave will tell me all the time, and, Tommy and everybody, all our team, they're like, oh yeah, police hate training. I'm like, great. So, you set up the room, everybody comes in, their arms are folded, they're mad, right? And, it's sort of like, could you just wait an hour before you hate it? And pretty quickly, it's like, oh. And I think the things that really, Dave, Lloyd, Tommy, Derek, who are our lead trainers, and other people who worked on this, really brought to this was, here is something about being human and a police officer. Whether you think you have trauma or not, let's pretend you don't. Like, this is what our brains do regardless. And let's talk about what you think and feel and do. And there are these cycles that everybody goes through. And if you're not paying attention, you sort of bumble it all together and you're reactive. And so it's the thing that struck me, since I'm not a police officer or a corrections officer, but from the outside, is it gives the officers something immediately. This is not it, right? Like Lloyd said, it's not that you're bad. It's like, here, let's just tell you some stuff about being a human being. Oh, by the way, we all do this. And let's talk about how we get in these negative cycles. And as I've, learned, from this great team, like there are classic cycles that people are getting into. And so they just find it like, oh. And the other thing, and this is to Dave's credit, Dave's like, oh, we're not using any big words. Well, no, that idea is not good. It's too complicated. Like this has to be simple, and really has driven that. And then with Lloyd and Tommy and Derek, the team, like it has to be accessible. We're not using words like amygdala that I can barely pronounce or spell. Like we're not, is it perfect? No. Are you ready to operate on someone's brain? No. But here's some truths that are pretty helpful. And so and then the second thing I would say that Lloyd really hit on is that it gives people something immediately that they can use for themselves. And then it's sort of, oh yeah, by the way, this is what's going on with every single person I'm interacting with. And that becomes the blessing and the benefit to community without saying, hey, you're bad, you're terrible, you treat people terrible, people hate cops, whatever. It's sort of like, hey, let's talk about what trauma does. And so without the lecture, without you need to pay attention to everybody else, it's like, here, this is for you. So that's I think a real key to that.
Yeah, and I love this program. You're really addressing conflict in a very innovative way, right? And that's exactly what the foundation wants to be funding. Looking at it, like you're saying, like a whole systems approach, looking at it from a brain chemistry approach, and really giving people a window into what's happening with you in this moment and what's happening with the other person in this moment, and really helping them reflect on that before reacting. And another thing that I find really striking about this program, and I think, from my perspective, why you're able to get in and make it work, you have, and this, your trainers are walking the walk and talking the talk. They have the lived experience of being in the shoes of the folks that they're training, which makes a huge difference, for the credibility coming in there. And like you were saying with the training, just knowing the perspective of who you're training and training in a way that's really going to speak to the people who you're talking to. So it makes a lot of sense. How people listening, if they're saying, wow, I wish, my local police department had this or whatever, what are the steps that you take in order to engage stakeholders? Like, how do you approach a police department, or do they approach you? How does that work? How do you initiate this?
Well, I mean, I think it's changed over time. Lloyd can talk about some stuff now, but like in the beginning, we kind of had to go beg people who are our friends. Like, please come do this. I will say the Baltimore Police Department was very open. And so really, we're willing to take it to the Department of Justice under the consent decree and support it. So that was really great. We started by just begging people to come and try. It's smart to go where it's open. So people, instead of go have a battle with somebody. We have done some outreach to departments just based on follow-up, but we're still, although they've trained over 7,000 officers now, right? It's amazing. It still helps if someone's open to it for now. Now Lloyd's got enough reputation in Maryland. You can talk a little bit. He's got some more people interested, so that's helping.
Like Molly said, in the beginning, it was more of going to people that we did know and to explain to them how it works, how beneficial it could be. And some of it is having the background to talk to them. And if they believe in you, they can believe in the program and say, hey, we'll try it out. And again, we have the belief that if we can get in the door, you'll want us to come back. Right. And it's really, again, that once we do it, it kind of explains itself. It sells itself to the point that now, as we're doing a lot of these trainings, we are getting phone calls and people reaching out to us asking, hey, what is that training that you were doing? Because I'm hearing so much about it. Can you explain it to us? Can you come to maybe do a class? And then usually once we do a class or two, at that point, they're like, how do we get more classes?
Mhm.
Because this is a class that I say this, and I think we all say this. I wish I'd had this class day one of when I joined the police department, because some of the things that I went through, I probably would not have gone through if I'd have just had this training. But this is a training. You could be a 1-year veteran, a rookie officer. You can been on for 40, 50 years. And while taking the class, we've had veterans that have been on like 40 years, like, oh, wow, that was me.
Mhm.
So it's a class that you kind of look back and see, like, I look at Molly like, how come you didn't come up with this 30 years ago? But you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'll say, the foundation has been instrumental, just absolutely instrumental at two key points. A couple years ago, we see something that's good. You all invested in us, let us get to the first level of evaluation, which is really critical. But also, by the way that you gave us money, we were able to underwrite some of these first classes just because we had to. And we also needed to get you were critical in the Baltimore Police Department, a major department through. And then you kindly came in and invested at the next phase. And we've got more development going on. It's a little tricky on this phase 2 evaluation because, it's hard to get data. I mean, everybody's got these ideas of can you look at these things? Can you look at changes? But most people don't have data, but we're making progress. And so we are beyond grateful to you all. I mean, we really see your foundation as a, it's almost like a cornerstone of letting us sort of move forward. And I think we're going to get some more evaluation stuff going soon. We've gotten more interest, and, next we got to find investment to work on AI to figure out how, because AI could do interactive coaching. Because it's important that this training is interactive as opposed to, like, here's some slides, go through it. And so we're just so grateful to you all. I mean, I tell everybody, somebody told me about you all, and then I call them all the time going, oh my God, they did invested, they get it. And so you're understanding also that dispute resolution has to have some flexibility. It has to be looked at in multiple ways. It's just extraordinary. So we are so grateful to you all.
Well, thank you. It's our honor. It's just a wonderful program. And it's very interesting that you are mentioning AI, because I think that's on everyone's mind, and certainly something that the AAA ICDR is heavily invested in, and utilizing ourselves in what we do for
Right.
conflict resolution. So we should certainly talk further.
Yes, we have to talk more. We're kind of done enough homework. We know what help we need. And, the key to this, just to underscore around the training, it is about interaction, right? It's about legitimate interaction so that you're engaging, whether it's police or correction officers, in something that's meaningful as opposed to here's a slide on the wall. And I guess one other thing I would say, and Lloyd, you may want to lean into this too. What's really interesting hearing from Lloyd and Dave, Tommy, all of whom have done they've trained all kinds of trainings. They're, everything has gone on in the country. And they all come back going, God, if this was a base first, it would then help these other trainings. Because it's really hard to look at, bystander intervention if you don't know what's going on with yourself. It's really hard to look at bias if you don't understand yourself. And so that, it's just such a privilege on our end to host this team and this work, because if it empowers people to understand themselves and others better as a baseline, I'm not saying there isn't more. I think that's really important. And I think when I think about conflict, like, if you kind of don't know with yourself, it's so easy to get into conflict about, you don't even know what you're in conflict for, right? Like, there's all these things going on that you have no idea of. And so that to me is one of the most empowering things about this process.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, you base it on, like, what part of your brain are you in, right? And
Right.
and if you go to that part of your brain where you're really not able to rationalize, you're done. It's very hard to get back to, where you can actually engage in a conversation and understand what the other person, is trying to express to you.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Something I'm interested in too is, I know you do the initial training, and I know you also have follow-up. So I want to hear, could you tell us a little bit about the follow-up that you do with the police officers as part of your program as well?
Sure. Do you want to, Lloyd?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do in reference to the follow-up is we do evaluations throughout the course to kind of see where they are and to see if they're actually using it and is it helping. And we also do text messaging, right? Again, transparency. I didn't know if a text message was going to work because I was tired of getting text messages from all these people telling me I owed a bill that I didn't owe. So me being a police officer and understanding police, we're like, I don't want a text message. But over time, through the periods, we started off, I think we were doing 3 to 4 months of it. By the time we were finished, we were getting phone calls asking us, hey, how did you know that something was about to happen? Because I received that text message right at the perfect moment, to the point that people who started this training 2 years ago started asking, hey, can we keep getting the messages? Because it seemed to work out and they seemed to love to receive the information to refresh themselves. So that's one of the things that we do as a follow-up. And of course, any time you want to change, the change only happens if you want it, right? We can't force it. But surprisingly to me, it was so many people who want those messages and still receive the messages. And i.e., I train it and I still receive the messages. But I think that they're important for those constant reminders. So those are one of the steps that we do in reference to the follow-up, continuing, push on to the training, because we all know change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
It's funny, I rarely give direct orders, but I got so much pushback. I'm like, oh no, we're doing the text. They're like, you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I don't care. We're doing the text, and people love it. We did do a 1-year follow-up, Tracy, but this is some of, like, we have a sort of whole way we want to get into AI. It would be a lot better if we could create a more interactive thing. And I think that would be very helpful. I mean, we have it, it's okay, it'll remind you, but it's not, we have to figure that out. They are piloting, is it this week or next week? Maybe it's next week. They're piloting a 4-hour first-time supervisors training at the request of the Baltimore Police Department and the Middlesex House of Correction. That'll be a little more interactive, but you would have had to go through the first day. So I think that, we're hopeful. I think that'll go very well. It's really interesting to kind of, again, if we really want to scale, this has got to be the next road we cross and figure out a little bit this evaluation, because I mean, I don't have to tell you. I mean, it's amazing the thing people ask us, like, well, can you tell if this has changed? I'm like, no, nobody can. But I think that'll be really key is to keep working on that follow-up, and in a dream world, if you could get it AI focused, right? And maybe you lengthen, if people want to get beyond the 6 months, it's 2 texts a week, 6 months, maybe you lengthen that if you want. If you could get this interactive thing even once a year for a couple of years. I mean, I think that would be the next road to cross here.
And also with Baltimore, I think they did it in 4 stages where they do a follow-up. Is through their system that they do monthly trainings online, and they do it in stage. I think it's 4 different stages, and it's a refresher of everything that they learned the year before through Rewire 4 and additional follow-ups. And I think they're finishing up their last phase of that evaluation, and I think they want to continue it because of the success it's been having.
Yeah. And so I hear you that sort of in terms of looking to the future of the program, it sounds like leveraging technology, right? New technology to help the program, and working on more impact measurements. And I know you've done some impact measurements, and you recently had a program of overview of providing what you found. So can you talk a little bit to sort of in terms of the impact measurements that you have done and evaluations that you've done, what you've seen?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that the measurement to date in the stage 1, we're just into stage 2 now, is much more outputs and feedback than sort of classic outcome impact, because it's just impossible. But the majority of people, well over 90%, would recommend it to somebody else, which, as I understand from Lloyd and Dave, for police is like incredible. Like, oh, no, they hate this stuff. And then probably a key, it's all self-report. So people are reporting using it. They are reporting better relationships at home and at work. And there is sort of an increase in empathy, which is really critical. I mean, there's all these charts that are complicated, which we're glad to share, but those are sort of the punchlines. So that's kind of, you know, it's exciting. And I think it'll be really, we've been talking to people over, you know, with your support. We've been talking to people in different places who do evaluation to kind of go, okay, how could we really get to, we're piloting one, we have to go do the second level of training. But like, how do we get to something that's a little bit meaningful where you could actually access data a little more transparently? It's just hard, you know? So they're reporting less use of force. It's kind of hard to study that, right? It's not as easy as people think. But I mean, I think that's a good start.
Yeah, the use of force trying to measure is truly a hard thing to measure because usually what's only reported is when it did happen. There's nothing to grab of all these encounters when it did not happen and it was because of this, right? There's no way to, it's hard. Well, I'm not saying no way. I'm sure there's a way, some kind of way. We just haven't figured it out yet. But it's kind of hard to track the situation that didn't happen negatively because that's not what's reported. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, this person, unless they tell us, hey, you know, I was thinking and I knew not to get into my bottom brain. But unless they tell us, we wouldn't know.
But I will say that anecdotally, the whole team sometimes they get a text back, they get a call back about how it really made a difference. It saved them from getting in trouble. You know, one of our police officers in our local place was sort of the last one to come in, dragging his feet. Within 24 hours, he called Dave and said, "Oh my God, I used this already." I mean, you know, it's not exactly pure science impact evaluation, but it's, you know, it's something, so it's good.
Right. Or even just thinking about decreasing burnout, you know, I mean, this is a tough career and,
Yes.
people, I'm sure, just feel beat down, right? So how do you sort of help them? And I love that measurement of increasing empathy, because I think that's a huge antidote to burnout. To really feel for the folks who you're helping.
One of the things that this training helps with, which Molly made reference to earlier, we've received a lot of training, right? This training kind of brings them all together. But what separates this and what I think helps the officers the most is that CBT. That was like an eye opener for us and for a majority of people of understanding the relationships of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, how it can control your actions. And just those two things, if you disrupt the unhelpful thought or unhelpful feeling, how it can change behavior. And being able to look through people through a trauma lens and understanding we're all human. We all go through things, right? A lot of classes that we received in the past were all about somebody did something wrong. Now you have to do this, you have to do that, and you do that. This is truly a class of you didn't do anything wrong. This is to help you because I want you to be better for you. Whether you stay in this career or whether you go home and you do something in another line, because this can help you for a lifetime. And like you said, if you can decrease that trauma and that impact it has on you, it's a better success because we all know that if you're going through those stress levels, it can control your blood pressure. It can control weight gain. It can control how you are with your family. All of those things go hand in hand. So just that understanding of the brain, the top brain, bottom brain, like a lot of them will joke about top brain, bottom brain, but they're practicing, right? And also understanding like my feelings, if I don't catch them, my behavior can be something that's not conducive to what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's what separates this training from most is really that CBT. That was an eye opener for most of us, is understanding that relationship between all of those things. Each one can have an impact on the other.
I would just add to two things. One is like, if you understand what's going on with yourself, it'll really help with burnout, right? I'm like a mess. I don't even know why I'm a mess. There are some other great trainings in this country where they're teaching police CBT, but not this simple. I mean, this is sort of, here is this simple thing for you as a person. And that's not to judge the others, because there's just some very brilliant stuff going on. Not a lot, but it is kind of a funny thing to think, how did policing get this far without even understanding minimal things of the brain? Like, because it explains so much. So We're just really excited. And again, so grateful to the foundation. Oh my goodness, I can't even. Incredible.
It's our pleasure. I'll let you have any last words. If there's anything else you wanna add, this has been wonderful.
No, don't have anything.
Okay, great.
Oh, just so grateful again. Thank you to the foundation and your team, and we look forward to our work with you. And we have a great team doing the work, and it's our privilege to do it. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, that wraps up today's conversation with the AAA-ICDR Foundation podcast. Thank you for joining us as we explore the power of dispute resolution in advancing access to justice and fostering impactful change. If you found this discussion insightful, we invite you to follow, rate, and share the podcast to help spread the word. To learn more about the Foundation's work, the projects we support, and how you can contribute to expanding access to conflict resolution worldwide, visit AAA-ICDRFoundation.org and follow us on LinkedIn at AAA-ICDR Foundation. Until next time, let's embrace conflict as a catalyst for understanding, connection, and stronger communities. Thanks for listening.